So the Free Press have come out with a big splash piece article where they are entitling it The Kindergarten Intifada. It's by journalist Abigail Schreier, where she writes that there is a well-coordinated national effort in America between teachers, activist organizations, and administrators to indoctrinate American children against Israel. I want to read to you some of the report and then we'll unpack it. In August, the second largest teachers' union chapter in the country, there are more than 35,000 members of the United Teachers Los Angeles, met at the Bonaventure Hotel in LA to discuss, among other things, how to turn their K-12 students against Israel. In front of a PowerPoint that read, "How to be a teacher and an organizer and not get fired," history teacher Ron Gotches elaborated on stealth methods for indoctrinating students. But how to transport busloads of kids to an anti-Israel rally during the school day without arousing suspicion? Quote, "A lot of us that have been to those protest actions have brought our students. Now, I don't take the students in my personal car," Gotches told the crowd. Then, referring to the Los Angeles Unified School District, he explained, quote, "I have members of our organizations who are not LAUSD employees. They take those students, and I just happen to be at the same place and at the same time with them." Gotches was just getting warmed up. Quote, "It's like tomorrow I go to church and some of my students are at the church. Oh wow, hey, how you doing? We just happen to be at the same place at the same time, and look, we just happen to be at a pro-Palestine action, same place, same time." The crowd burst into approving laughter. Seated at a keffiyeh-draped table, Gotches said, quote, "Some of the things that we can do as teachers is to organize. We just have to be really intelligent on how we do that. We have to know that we're under the microscope. We have to know that Zionists and others are going to try to catch us in any way that they can get us into trouble." He continued, "If you organize students, it's at your own risk, but I think it's something that's necessary we have to do." He told the audience of educators that he once caught a Zionist teacher looking through his files. Gotches warned the crowd to be wary of admin trying to be all chummy with you. You've got to be very careful with that, even sometimes our own students. John Adams middle school teacher and panelist William Shattuck agreed, a keffiyeh around his neck. "We know that good history education is political education, and when we're coming up against political movements like the movement for Zionism that we disagree with, that we're in conflict with, they, Zionists, have their own form of political education and they employ their own tools of censorship." What are the tools of censorship employed by Zionists? Apparently, they include accusing teachers who rail against Israel in the classroom of anti-Semitism. They try to say anti-Semitism, which is really ridiculous, right? Said, I don't know how to pronounce this name, Guadalupe Carrasco Cardona, ethnic studies teacher at Edward Roybal Learning Center in LA. Cardona recently received a National Education Association Foundation Award for excellence in teaching. Quote, "What they do is they conflate. Part of that is by putting the star of their flag on their flag," Cardona said, referring to the Jewish Star of David. "Religion has nothing to do with it." But she insists that the course she teaches and whose curriculum she helped develop, ethnic studies, is fundamentally incompatible with supporting Israel. Are you pro-Israel? Are you for genocide? And if anybody were to say, okay, sure, that's not really ethnic studies, Gotches, Shattuck and Cardon did not return requests for comment. It's tempting to dismiss this as one more bull session among radical teachers leading a far-left public sector union. If only. 4 years ago, I was among the first journalists to expose the widespread incursion of gender ideology into our schools. Once fringe beliefs about gender swiftly took over large swathes of society, partly thanks to their inclusion in school and curricula and lessons. Today, extensive interviews with parents, teachers, and into 501c3 non-profit organizations that monitor radicalism and indoctrination in schools has convinced me that demonization of Israel in American primary and secondary schools is no passing fad. Nor is it confined to elite private schools serving hyper-progressive families. As one Catholic parent who exposes radicalism in schools nationwide on the Substack Undercover Mother said to me, they've moved on from BLM to gender unicorn to the new thing, anti-Israel activism. Anti-Israel activism is the new gender ideology in the schools. Parents who watch in alarm as gender theory swept through schools will recognize the sudden, almost religious conversion to this newest ideology, and very few educators are standing against it. Much of the anti-Israel slides into classrooms through a subject called ethnic studies. In 2021, California became the first state to adopt it as a requirement for receiving a high school diploma. Legislatures of more than a dozen states have already followed suit, incorporating ethnic studies into K-12 curricula. In principle, these laws require schools to teach the histories and cultures of African Americans, Asian Americans, and Pacific Islanders, Latinos, and Native Americans. In practice, they grant teachers license to incorporate lessons that often divide civilization into oppressed and oppressor. The classic divide. A primary fixation of ethnic studies is, of course, demonizing Israel. Activist-led organizations readily support instructional materials. Arab Resource and Organizing Center, Middle East Children's Alliance, Teaching While Muslim, Jewish Voice for Peace, Zin Education Project regularly furnish distorted histories with eliminationist rhetoric against Israel. Especially in the years since the Hamas massacre of Israelis on October 7th, the anti-Israel materials have become pervasive. It's not surprising they're found in world history and current event lessons. But demonization of Israel is now taught in art, English, math, physics, and social-emotional learning classes. Anti-Israel activism spreads through online curricula that are password protected, eluding parental oversight. It's pushed by teacher unions, furnished by activist organizations, communicates to children through deception. Quote, "We just happened to be at the same place at the same time." Anti-Israel radicals willingly stake their job for their cause. Quote, "So how do we do all this without getting fired?" Gochest asks his assembled audience of public school teachers. That's the million-dollar question. And I don't know how in the hell we have not been fired yet, because I know for sure they have tried, but we have to organize. That's the bottom line. If they come after one of us, the district has to know that it will be a bigger headache for them to try to touch one of us than it would be to just leave us alone. All for the sake of indoctrinating other people's children. Fascinating. And by the way, I have to say that this article obviously continues. You can look it up online. We'll post a link to it. But this notion that they try to say that Judaism and Zionism have nothing to do with each other. We're not against Jews. So you're trying to tell me that in the 200 plus countries in the world, there's only one that is targeted for elimination. Even they probably say Israel has no right to exist. But they don't say that for any other country on the planet. But it's nothing to do with the Jews. So you've got Israel as the one country targeted for annihilation. And throughout history, frankly, you've only had consistently one group of people that have faced an eliminationist kind of hatred. The Jews. But today, the fact that it's only Israel, that's where people question her right to exist and seek her destruction, nothing to do with the fact that it's the Jews. It's just a Zionist thing. You know, I really think Zionists anti-Zionists need to start reading this thing. It's called the Bible, the Torah, Tanakh, right? It's got the 5 books of Moses, the prophets, and the writings. People say Zionism, Israel has nothing to do with Judaism. I invite you to read it. Please read it, because you will find in this book literally the story of one man building one family and then it becomes one nation, and their journey towards establishing sovereignty in the promised land. They escape slavery. They start off in the lands. They come down and become a nation in the land of Egypt. They are liberated, and this is the documents their journey to the promised land, where it's all about returning. And Jews for thousands of years would say 3 times a day, "May our eyes behold the return to Zion." It's farcical. And so now the question becomes, well, how do we deal with this? You know, some people say we've got to educate, we've got to just share these facts. And some people say, no, we've got to, they're talking about some people are trying to stop them from indoctrinating children. It's like, do we try more of it's a bit like the carrot versus stick approach. Do we try to educate, or do we try to come down hard against people like this who are indoctrinating children? Frankly, I don't think it's just about Israel versus anti-Israel. It's not. I don't really think it's so appropriate for teachers to be activists like this with children, regardless of their cause. So I actually think we need a bit of both. Probably, you should use lawfare where necessary, But certainly from my perspective, the work that JTV does and many others do as well, is simply just to educate and share the truth for the many masses that will understand. And I encourage, if you're a student and you're being indoctrinated, being given a one-sided partisan approach to Israel or any topic, and the teacher's shoving their views down your throat, and worse than that, maybe inviting you to activism outside the classroom, get educated, stand up for yourself, react, respond so that the class can also see that and hear another point of view. But also, if it becomes too much and over the top, you should consider the actions that you would need to be taking, not because we want to silence people, but because this is not really appropriate in a classroom. If you've made it so far in this video, I have a request for you. JTV has been having a really big impact in spreading the truth about Israel and creating positive associations with the Jewish people, Judaism, and Israel. We've really grown a lot, particularly in the last year, and we're having a really significant impact, both for Jews and non-Jews. But I really want to take JTV to the next level so we can start to compete with the other big online media beasts that are often peddling anti-Israel content. And the way we're going to do that is to scale even faster. So I'd love to build a team where we have other presenters doing shows like me, let's start doing documentaries, supplementary content, animated content, etc., etc. And to do that, I'd like to build a bit of a team. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one fundraising day, just one, where we try and build up some funding in order to fund such a team. Now, to do that, it's going to obviously require people to get involved. And I'm wondering if you would consider, if you're watching JTV content and appreciate what we do and want to help partner with us in taking this to the next level and spreading the truth farther and wider than ever before, I wonder if you'd consider partnering with us simply by running a mini page on the fundraiser that we do, where you just reach out to your contacts on that day that we choose to fundraise and see if they'll all chip in. If you'd be up for doing that, of which I would be so grateful, then please click on the Google form link in the video description of this video, where you can simply just put in a few contact details. It'll be a very small commitment, as I say, literally just one day that we'll all agree upon as a collective community. But the impact is going to be so big. There's such strength in numbers. If we all pull together and do this, we can take this to the next level. And as I say, all of us can partner together in bringing and spreading the truth to the whole world. So please do consider clicking on that link, filling in the form, and I'll be in touch very soon to talk about the next steps. Small commitment, but a big impact. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.